What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. No fancy intro this week. I just want to talk about a big mistake that I made. And that mistake being mounting the transmission too low relative to the transmission tunnel. And that created a number of issues. The first of which being that because of the fact that it was mounted lower, it was actually hanging out below sort of the bottom of the undercarriage by 4 inches or maybe even a little bit more than that. I'll put a picture up on screen and you can see here that it's mounted super low and it sticks out below the bottom of that undercarriage, and that possibly could have affected the drive shaft angle or the pinion angle because of the fact that it's essentially functioning at a V. Like if the trans is mounted this way and the drive shaft is trying to get to the differential, like instead of it being in a straight line, with the trans mounted low and the drive shaft having to compensate for that, like that could potentially kind of create some binding or potentially be a problem. So that's problem number one. Problem number two was actually at the back of the engine bay. And the problem we were having back here is because of the fact that the transmission was mounted low, it was actually tipping downwards and it was pulling the backside of this engine backwards toward the firewall. And this aluminum water neck was actually touching the back of the firewall, which is a big no-no. Basically, this engine's gonna be vibrating when it gets to, I don't know, 8,400 RPM. And yeah, you don't want this, any part of your engine touching really anything except for the subframe. In addition to that, I went to go sort of start mocking up all of my wiring, and these two camshaft position sensors, the intake cam and the exhaust cam, were way too far back, and I wasn't really able to get any of the wires connected to those sensors, in addition to the fact that we have our air conditioning block right here. So this is what connects your AC lines into the heater core inside of the cabin to essentially provide you with cold air, was way too close to the back of the block and was, you know, I wasn't really going to be able to fit the lines. And with all of that in mind, we decided to come back, raise up the transmission so that it's not mounted so low, it's mounted a lot higher, and that cleared up a lot of space at the back of the engine bay. As you could see, it brought the shifter position up much higher. It got the top of the transmission body a lot closer to the tunnel, although nothing is touching, which is pretty much what you want. You want to get it as high up as you can without it actually touching that tunnel, just 'cause it's going to be vibrating and shaking around a lot, so you don't want it to basically be wearing any of that metal on the underside of the car. And that also fixes the drive shaft issue, which I don't know how big of an issue it would have been, but basically the straighter you can get that line between the end of the transmission and the front, you know, the slip yoke of the drive shaft, the straighter you can get that line, the better off you're going to be, the more reliable it's going to be. And so taking a look at the transmission down here at the bottom, this obviously was the lowest part of the transmission. And so now if we back up and take a look at the car from the side, you can see that it still hangs out just a little bit, but that is significantly better than the, I don't know, 3.5, 4 inches that it was kind of hanging out from the bottom. That would have been an issue with just going over speed bumps, hitting potholes, anything like that. Basically, I just didn't want it to snag something on the road and put a bunch of stress on it and potentially damage the transmission or the engine mounts or anything like that. So really good that we kind of got that fixed up. And so taking a look at the inside of the car, you can see that this shifter, which again is the Serial 9 shifter relocator, is actually protruding up. You know, the base here is sticking up into the cabin. And I don't know if that's technically exactly how it's supposed to be, but it totally works for our application. And it's relatively center in terms of the shifter hole, but that is kind of how it sits. Now that that's done, we can actually finish bolting in the engine, getting everything tightened down to, you know, proper torque spec and all that. And we can really kind of just start focusing on engine bay stuff, kind of wrapping things up, wiring, fuel lines, coolant hoses, all that kind of stuff. As a little sneak peek, I got a little something to replace an old piece. This is the K-tuned K24 valve cover. This thing is sweet. This is going to be the very next video that's coming either this week or the next week. And so it has much thicker ports like -10 AN ports for your catch can, because the ones on mine were like, basically I just tapped the walls, like the outer wall of the valve cover with a, you know, a -10 tap. But, you know, the metal is so thin, I kind of didn't trust that, and it also got, you know, banged up and damaged a lot while we were taking the engine, putting it in, pulling it out, all that kind of stuff. So this guy in wrinkle red is gonna be so nice. We've got the K-tuned oil cap, K-tuned oil dipstick, and I've got a little something special coming for the spark plug cover. You guys are gonna have to wait on that one. So this is just a little sneak peek for what's coming next week. The reason that I'm making this video is because of the fact that I'm doing this as a step-by-step guide. Follow along with me, here's exactly how you do it. And I want to be as transparent as I possibly can with you guys, so that, you know, if you did it exactly like how I did it, then you would have this problem and you would have to go back through and find a solution. So I wanted to basically come back, show you my mistakes, and then tell you how I fixed it and what I needed to fix and all of that. And again, I appreciate you guys sticking around and watching all the videos. If you like this one, then give it a big thumbs up down below. Subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date on the builds. And until next time, build your dreams.